Well, the situation with the NBA and now with esports certainly highlighting some of the obvious trouble with the platform of Twitter, especially when it's used by influential corporate types. Joining us now, American Enterprise Institute policy analyst Jimmy Pethokoukis and a CNBC contributor. Also joining us, branding expert and CEO of the Velvet Suite, representing companies from P&G to the NBA, is Melissa Dawn Simpkins. Melissa and Jimmy, thanks very much for joining us. Melissa, your job is to go to companies and say, hey, you should do this, you should not do that. You're looking at what happened with the NBA, with the Rockets, now with this esports player and everything else. What is your advice to corporate America when A, dealing with China, and B, maybe dealing with social media generally?
You know, conscious capitalism has a cost. There is a shift now in the corporate world of really taking on value-driven, mission-driven messaging, and social media is a great platform to share those stories, to elevate the brand to a greater mission and purpose and vision. But what do you do when your values clash, particularly with a giant like China, who represents over 1 billion of your customers? So brands have to be much more intentional, I think, at the C-suite, of really understanding the integration of HR, of marketing, of risk, of technology and IT to really come up with a risk management strategy to address these concerns and be proactive about them.
Melissa, I think you just coined a new phrase, actually, the She-Suite, Xi Jinping. We're going to use that from now on, by the way. Good job on the branding. Jimmy P., let me ask a little more directly. If you're a corporate board, public, maybe a big private company, big public company, big sports franchise, should you ban your top executives from being on Twitter? I know it sounds harsh, but not a lot of upside, whole lot of downside.
Well, listen, I think there's tremendous downside to allowing sort of unfiltered, unreviewed tweets. Granted, you know, if depending on your company's sort of, depending on their brand, that sort of kind of unfiltered conversation may be a plus. But listen, I think especially with China, the issue I think is almost less, you know, companies which can put in a policy. But what about when you're running a sports league, or you're running a movie studio, or you have, you know, artists like Taylor Swift? They're not going to listen. They're going to do their own thing. They're not going to listen to these corporate policies. And we saw what happened with the NBA. At some point here, take somebody like Taylor Swift, sells a lot of albums in China, is, you know, kind of a very woke artist. What happens when someone asks Taylor Swift about the Uyghurs in Western China? Ask her about Hong Kong, and she has an opinion. Then what happens? Is she gonna? Should she be touring China? Will China ban her albums? I think, especially with China, this really has as a prospect.
Well, you represent
two-way boycotts.
Listen, we're on live TV here. I mean, CNBC is trusting me that I'm not just going to go off the rails and start making sort of pro-Hong Kong statements, whatever. I mean, if you're an actor or an actress, and I think there was actually, my brain is tired, a Disney actress who voiced a movie, who made some comments, and they didn't like it, and they thought about either they did or they thought about pulling the movies. I can't quite remember what it was. But when you, Melissa, represent a corporation, everyone's like, you're stifling free speech. No, you're not. If you represent a corporation and you're a high-level executive and you make some comments, it could cost a lot of people their jobs if they lose business.
Correct. I mean, this is a social media platform, and I think that the challenge is we want to separate our personal lives from our professional lives. And unfortunately, at the executive level, your brand is synonymous with one another. And so the opportunity really is for companies to be proactive in thinking about what is your social media strategy for executive brands? How are you connecting the dots and helping them share the story of the brand, but at the same time addressing these risks and being proactive, maybe even creating policies around when and what and how to share. I don't think it's censorship, but it is stewardship of the brand in general for the company.
Yeah, and you've got the world's worst disclaimer, Melissa. Like a lot of people have, you know, like views are my own on Twitter, on their No, they're not, right? I mean, that's the least effective disclaimer of all time. Should companies come out and say, you know what, aside from the CEO and everything's vetted by lawyers, just stay off Twitter. Just don't do it.
Well, I think it's going to be hard to make that argument because at the end of the day, it is free speech, and our country values that as a core principle of who we are. But I think you do have to look at policy around what does your company allow, and what are the, what is the leeway in terms of conversation on social platforms? Because it can create a value to the organization.
Right. Listen, you have companies that are going to be hiring a lot of people who have spent their whole lives on social media, and now you're going to say, well, we're going to have to shut that down. I think that makes it tougher to recruit. Makes it tougher to recruit maybe the kind of creative people you want at your company.
Okay, I hear you. But hold on, we got to go. But here's the difference. And I hear the free speech argument. No one's saying stifle free speech. I mean, I can say whatever I want outside the office to my friends and family and whatever. But Twitter is effectively like a press release in some cases. That's the difference. You know, a corporation, a person at a corporation, Jimmy, does not have the ability to just issue a press release on behalf of the company. Effectively, that's what Twitter is. Now, that's not what Twitter was designed to be, but people are reading it that way.
Listen, I think that kind of policy, corporate-wide, especially for companies which talk a lot about stakeholders and values, I think that this will be a never-ending battle putting out fires. I'm not sure there's an easy solution, but I think just trying to clamp down and say no social media other than pictures of your pets and family. Good luck.
Well, yeah. Listen,
I totally agree. You're not going to be able to censor people, but you do have to say, what is our message as an organization? And that goes right back to your brand values. At the end of the day, what does your brand stand for? And are your people reflecting that brand value?
And I want to be clear in this conversation, because I hear it all. But I want to be clear. I was talking about the top exec. You know, if you're a member of a 50,000 person corporation, people know you're probably not speaking for the company. But if you're one of the top 5 or 10 executives, it could be. I'm talking about that, not guys. Melissa and Jimmy, great conversation. I could take it an hour. We need a podcast. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.